Well, hello there, and welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. I'm sure you can tell what I'm going to show you how to build this time, right? No? Well, you will in a second. So let me show you this new semi-automatic cow farm. And so, what do I mean by semi-automatic? I mean it is fully AFK-able and will take care of everything for you. All you have to do is leave the computer running and with a button held down, either actually holding down the button with something, or using one of those tricks to virtually hold it down. But you just hold down right click and it'll do everything else for you. And the way this works is by building on the current standard using piston translocation to separate babies from adults, but it changes the design a little bit, which allows it to be a lot more automatic. So let me show you what I mean. So once you build this thing, getting the cows in here is all your responsibility. In survival, you're probably going to need to bring them in with a lead or lead them in with some wheat. But I'm in creative, so I'm just going to use my spawn eggs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here we have 10 cows. Okay, so these are going to be our seed cows. And basically, you press this button, you AFK while holding down right click with your wheat, and then you press this button again. Now, in survival, you are going to be using up wheat, so you might want to just fill your inventory with wheat before you come in here. But depending on how many cows you have in here, it'll use your wheat faster or slower, so keep all of that in mind. I'm in creative, so I have infinite wheat. But let's see how this works. So normally I just stay here forever until I wanted to come back to my computer, but in this case I'm just gonna stay here till they're all bred, which they're clearly not. But yeah, I think they're all bred about now. And so once you're done, you should let go and then just let that piston fire a few more times. That's important. So I think that'll be good. And then you just press it again, if I can get back there, to turn it off. And then, if you look, all our babies are here. There's actually quite a few babies there. They're just all stacked on top of each other. And then the next thing to do would just be to AFK normally and, or do stuff around the area to keep the chunks loaded, or put this in your spawn chunks, just to let them grow up. But I'm not patient enough for that for this demonstration, so I'm just going to artificially grow them up. So entity data, type cow within a radius of 10, age -2, so that in 2 ticks they will grow up. And there we go. And now you can see that there's multiple cows there. And then if we look in our chest, we've got 8, 9, 10. We have 10 steak, which, if you remember, we had 10 breeder cows, so we should only have 5 in here. But yet we actually get more than that because sometimes they breed up again. So we've gotten 10 steak from, what, 20 seconds of breeding? So this is really good. And of course, the more seed cows you have in there, the more your output will be. And yes, sometimes the cows do get stuck up here. I mean, that's not a big deal, I don't think. That's just the babies who didn't get pulled in that grow up again. But yeah, so that's pretty much how this works. And to show you that that doesn't affect it, I'm just going to do this one more time. I'm just going to reset their age to 0 so they'll be ready to breed. Oops. Yeah. And I will go. And AFK. And I think they're pretty much done breeding. But if we look over here, we can see we've got the cows just fine. And so as soon as they grow up, they're automatically cooked. And you don't have to worry about pressing a separate button for that. You don't have to worry about pressing a button to separate the babies from the adults. That's done automatically. Everything is fully, well, semi-automatic. It's fully AFK-able. So let's just grow you up and see what our extra 10 seconds gave us. And it gave us 3 more steak for 10 seconds of AFKing, which is That's wonderful. So, how does this work? Well, it works by using a few different principles. So, in order to show off the redstone, I'm going to have to get rid of these guys. They're kind of in the way. So, sorry guys, but everyone within 10 blocks of me, you're dead. Okay, so how this works, let's break this wall down so you can see, is when you press this button, first thing that happens is it triggers this dispenser, which obviously just has a water bucket in it. Now, when you have a dispenser, the comparator output, which, let's break this, so you can see there's a comparator coming out of that dispenser, and the comparator output depends on how filled the dispenser is. Now, a bucket of water fills up one space because it doesn't stack. So that fills up 1/9 of this, which equates to an output from the comparator of 2. But a bucket, an empty bucket, stacks to 16, so one of those only outputs 1. So when you press this button and it switches between a filled bucket and an empty bucket, this comparator output will switch between 1 and 2. And that's very important. So let's just break all of these extra support blocks. That one's not support. There. Now we can clearly see the redstone. So when this comparator output switches, it's going to toggle this torch. And the reason for that is we have this comparator on subtract, and then this comparator pointing into it, which is getting a signal from here with an empty bucket, which again is an output of 1. So we're subtracting 1 from the output. So if the output is 1, then this turns off, which turns that torch on. But when the bucket is filled again, and is filled with water, we get an output of 2, and 2 minus 1 is 1, which is still on, and that keeps the torch off. So that's basically just how this circuit detects when you've turned it on and off. And then what happens is when this comparator turns off because you've dispensed the water out, then this torch and these repeaters here will create a clock. Now you can change the rate at which the clock triggers. I just use 8 ticks, so 4 ticks on this repeater and 4 ticks on this one. You can change it, make it longer or shorter, whatever you want. I'd suggest not making it too short, because if you do, then it won't give the babies time to flow in here, because this clock is controlling this piston. So if this piston fires too frequently, then the water won't have time to flow in and push the babies in here, which you need. So 8 ticks seems to work just fine. Excuse me. And then we have the output from this torch, from the clock, going through this pulse limiter. Now this is a design you've seen many times in my videos. It's just a 2-tick repeater leading into the side of a subtractive comparator, and then the signal that triggers them comes from the same spot, so that the same signal comes through here, and then 1 tick later turns it off. And the only difference between this and the usual pulse limiter setup is that I had to put this block here and then take this torch's output up a block through here to power that, because this comparator, not repeater, this comparator is sitting right next to it. So if I put this on the same level as this comparator on the ground, it would also go into the side of this and create a much faster clock than we want, and it wouldn't be good. So yeah, so all we do to fix that is make that a block so that we can raise that redstone up above this level, but since this is actually pointing out of the block, it will still pick up the signal strength. And so what that does is every time this clock pulses, it creates a very short pulse that goes into this block, which is next to that piston, and it fires that piston. And so what happens is when the babies flow under here, when that piston fires, it will pull the babies through here, which brings them under the lava. Now the lava is not flowing down because we have that sign there, so that's a very important sign. But yeah, and then when the babies grow up, cows are more than 1 block tall, so they will actually grow up and grow into the lava and then catch fire. And then when they die, they'll just drop all their stuff into this hopper, which leads into this hopper, which leads to the output. So it's pretty simple. Now, one thing to note is that these piston setups will not pull adult cows. I don't know why. It has something to do with their size. I don't know if they're too big to pull or if it's just that there's not enough room on this side for them, so they don't pull through. Whatever the reason, only babies will ever get pulled here, which is why it's okay if some of the babies get stuck here and then grow up, because they're not actually going to get pulled through. So you're fine. And so the idea is that the adult cows are too big to fit through here, so they just kind of bob up and down as if this were a 1 block space, and you can breed them as they bob. But then the babies are small enough to get pushed by the water, which is moving, like that. They're small enough to get pushed by the water in front of the piston, and then the piston automatically triggers on a clock while it's on and pulls them under there. So yeah, it makes it fully AFK-able. And in fact, in a real world setting, you'd probably be AFKing for more than 5 minutes, which I think is about the time it takes a cow to grow up. Don't quote me on that. But you'll probably be AFKing for long enough that some of the cows that are produced right away will actually cook themselves before you're even done AFKing. So you have a pretty efficient farm here. And again, the more cows you have in the breeding center, the more your output will be. So that's pretty much it. The one last note is that if you want to build a floor here, right, because you don't necessarily need one, but if you want to build a floor here, everything around this piece of dust needs to be a slab. So if you put full blocks either here or here, you're going to get some butting issues, and it's going to turn your machine off on its own. Because what's going to happen is, when this dust powers from the clock, it's going to power these 2 blocks if they're full blocks. And when those blocks are powered, it's actually going to trigger this through quasi-connectivity, because this will actually create its own update for this block. So it'll power the block and create an update, which triggers this, and your machine's going to shut off. So again, all that means is that if you're going to put a floor around here, use slabs in these 2 spaces. I think everything else is okay to be full blocks if you want, but slabs in those 2 spaces. And obviously, since that redstone dust is there, you can't cover it up directly, but you can just throw a block above it, and so I suggest you just put your wall right here. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. And then your output, in this case, is just a chest, but you can run that into whatever you want. For example, you could have this hopper chain lead into a sorting system and have it sort out all your leather from your beef, or whatever else you want. You know, that's all up to you. I'm just showing you how to build the farm. So obviously this isn't the most compact wiring. I'm sure there's probably an easier way to do it. I shouldn't say easier, but a more compact way to do it. But to be fair, with the way the comparators and repeaters are, it actually is pretty compact on its own. So you just put this behind a wall and you're good. And as for the materials needed, this is everything. So 2 hoppers, a dispenser, 3 comparators, 3 repeaters, a redstone torch, some dust, and then for this doesn't have to be a dispenser. This can be anything that will give off a power of 1 from a comparator. So you can put a chest here with 1 item in it, you can put a hopper with 1 item, whatever you want. Just make sure it's only giving off a strength of 1. And that's it. That's really it. And obviously you're also going to need the bucket of water for that dispenser, the piston for that, and the bucket of lava for here, and the sign to stop that. But for the most part, it's pretty simple. The current designs use piston translocation like I do, but they're more vertical, so you'd have like the breeding center up here, and then the babies would be pulled through and drop down. The problem with that system is that if you drop them down, you can't have the lava here because they'll drop through the lava and die as babies and then not drop any meat or leather or anything. So those systems usually have two different switches. So you'd have one switch to bring the babies down, and then another switch to turn on the lava. Whereas with this design, because it's horizontal and going around a corner like this, it's actually, you don't have to turn the lava off at any point. You can just leave it there and it'll take care of itself. So yeah, that's my design. So until next time, nope, not that. Until next time, keep cooking your beef and keep redstoning.